What's going on, great people? It is I, the homie, the one and only Ashton Reynolds, and I would like to welcome you to the 12th episode of the Be The Change podcast, where I sit and I converse with individuals who have taken the initiative to make change, utilizing their gifts to embody the change with the intent to make the bigger picture come into fruition. And today is a very special episode, people. Why is it so special? Because it's historic. Why is it historic? Man, y'all ask a lot of questions, but I'm going to tell you why anyway. Because for the first time, I am sitting with an artist conducting an interview while on the same day that artist is releasing new music. Who is this artist? My goodness, y'all ask a lot of questions. But this artist is based out of Austin, Texas, and his name is Marco Ortega. He is a hip-hop artist, and he is combining trap sounds with unconventional sounds to create his own sound. So when you hear it, you say, hey, that's Marco Ortega right there. You feel me? So, what we're going to talk about is that new single entitled Virtual Tragedy, and we're going to talk about other topics such as his creative processes, his influences, current situations, and much more. So much things that we're going to explore. But before we get into that, hey, bring the beat in. Thank you. What's going on, everybody? It's the homie, the one and only Ashton Reynolds, and welcome to the Be The Change podcast live. This is the first episode on Instagram, people, and I am so honored to have this guest with me right here. He's a hip-hop artist straight out of Texas, people, and it's also special today because he also dropped a single today, people. It's called Virtual Tragedy. And I heard it, and I'm telling you, it's unique, it's authentic, it's real, and all of that rolled up in one. And plus, the tune is banging. It's out everywhere. And I have the artist, the creator, here with us today, so he can explain and elaborate more on his mindset of making that track, as well as his musical career, and so much more. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the one and only Marco Ortega. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for that very generous introduction. I appreciate that, man. Now, seriously, I mean, today's, like you said, it's my first debut single that dropped today, Virtual Tragedy. You know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went to that track. And I think it's actually pretty timely. The main purpose for the track, the main theme of it is definitely the uncertainty that the United States is in right now. And I saw that coming a mile away, and we could speak about that more deeply if you'd like later in the show. But yeah, that's the main theme. But I wanted to wrap that idea and take the aggressive sound that trap has today, and very much in mainstream rap, and use that vibe into a theme that very much is appropriate for it. So, like you said, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube. Anybody that listens to music, I'm there. So I'm very excited for people to listen to it.
Oh, man, so am I. And I'm so thankful that you took the initiative to make such a timely record. So I got to ask you this, because I'm glad that we actually shift into that part of the conversation, because with everything that's been going on in society today, and with you taking the initiative to use your gifts to make a song of that magnitude, take us through the process of creating that song. Like, how were you able to just say, hey, I'm going to take this sound here and I'm going to make a socially aware song that everybody can not only be entertained by, but also get some very valuable information from?
For sure. So this sort of goes through the process of, you know, I'm obviously, being a hip-hop artist, I'm a big fan of hip-hop, right? And I feel like there's very much an aggressive sound today. And the reason why it's so popular is because there's definitely a sense of postmodernism and nihilism, which we could definitely get into very much in the culture today as a topic. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to, instead of just using that aggressive sound, which I'm very much a huge fan of, in a very senseless way, I wanted to, again, put that through a topic that very much needs to be spoken about. I feel like generally in the culture, there are, and I mean, it's super controversial, but I think we're very conscious about what happens on the far right, and as we should, but the far left kinds of ideals that are being put forth and be given a lot of more attention to and being empowered, I think we're not only being critical of that kind of stuff, it's very much, being put at the forefront. So I wanted to put some idea towards that and some idea of that, just to speak a quick bar. Virtual tragedy, RP, the handshake, tensions to hot and gun selling like hotcakes, honestly. Like literally we're living through a virtual world because we can't go see each other. We have to have all our political discussion through Twitter and Facebook, which are literally the worst places to have political discussion. That's why I think podcasts are blowing up. And, God bless your podcast, because we need to have, important conversations like this. Mm-hmm. But we're having to live out all the social unrest and, the hope to God not that more could happen. But we have to watch this stuff through our phones, and we have to do our work through our computers. And we're seeing all the social unrest happen, and no real conversations are happening to actually solve the true problems that are at hand. And there's no reason for there to be social unrest. And it's not like there's no reason to be out in the streets. But to have these through horrible social channels is bad. And the fact that guns are literally selling out like hotcakes is also very scary. And then, of course, this Tuesday was the election. It's very much undecided. I saw that coming a mile away. And given the character that we have, the two characters we have, it's going to be contentious. And I don't know if the country is able to take that. So that's sort of the place we find ourselves in.
Right, in a place where it's a whole lot of uncertainty. It's a whole lot of people that are getting introduced to a lot of things firsthand that indeed they may have learned about in school, have heard about from prior generations, dealing with the racism and things of that nature. But also it's been a time where, it's been a lot of addressing and undressing, because with the generations, like the younger generation, my generation, and things of that nature, I understand that there's a vacancy and a generational gap between those who are going to actually stand for righteousness and those who are just evoking the emotions of what needs to be addressed, but there's no cohesion when it comes to articulating the plan. And one thing that I do love about being an artist and listening to artists such as yourself is you're able to embody lyrically what it is that is going on. And also you utilize your platform, those 3 minutes that you take to write your track out, to let people know exactly what is going on. And I could tell just off the rip that you are very knowledgeable and profound on exactly what is to come. And, how people always say the prophecies that has been fulfilled and the different things that are going on behind the scenes that a lot of people aren't paying attention on. And you've been alluding to it a little bit. So now's the opportunity. You can dive deep into what it is that virtual tragedy was actually saying. What is that message that virtual tragedy was trying to get the people to be aware of as they're going through their everyday lives today?
Absolutely. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about that. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much skeptical of the overarching narrative that's being portrayed through the mainstream media. I would call them the legacy media, because they're really not mainstream today. They're more just like the big heads that no one's paying much attention to anymore. Right. The overarching narrative that, and I'll just try to make this easy to understand. If you are a heterosexual white man, and God forbid you're Christian, you are the ultimate oppressor. And you are guilty of all sins, and you're automatically racist. And you should, repent from your inherent evil. And if you're a woman, you're slightly not that bad because there's a patriarchy, which I'm also I'm skeptical about. And then, if you're a Native American, non-binary lesbian in a wheelchair, you're like the ultimate queen, right? You're ultimate queen of all oppression, and you should be the next president. I'm skeptical of this overarching narrative. I was actually I actually watched really super, like everyone who's listening to this, including yourself, I highly recommend this podcast, the Dark Horse podcast, and it had a Black intellectual roundtable with Brett Weinstein, and then there was other Black intellectuals such as Glenn Lowry, Gary Coldman, the name escapes me. But they wanted to address the real problem that there is, in the Black community, because there is. I mean, that's not able to be ignored. But they were collectively skeptical that it's very much. They were skeptical that it's a race issue. Surprisingly, they very much think that instead of it being a Black issue, and instead of putting forth these band-aids of affirmative action, of artificially putting people of color, which is another term I'm not a huge fan of, in C-level positions as if that's going to fix everything. It's not.
Right.
There is a culture issue going on, and it's not, again, to be clear, it's not because Black people are Black. It's disproportionately affecting the Black community. One of the Black intellectuals, in his words, he had said that in around the 70s to 80s, there was a shift that the idea was Black authenticity involves in just checking out and not really trying to better yourself. So that became something that's cool, and that's taken a hold disproportionately in the Black community. Again, there are other races that deal with this as well, but for it to be that, and also the tragedy of there's a ridiculously low amount of Black fathers in Black households. That's a huge problem.
Right.
These systemic things that are affecting the Black community. So don't mean to go rant too much on that end, but I was just trying to put forth in my song that there's this narrative going on that's very toxic. This anti-racist idea that, okay, it sounds cool because racism is bad, but this anti-racist idea of if you're white, you're evil, and you need to bow down and clean the feet of these Black oppressed people as if they're the people we have to repent sins to, and who we actually need to repent our sins to. This overarching narrative is very worrying and scary, because if you don't agree with it, you're a racist, you're a bigot, and you're canceled. And it's very concerning. Again, there's a real issue to be fixed, but sadly, that's not being spoken about right now. And neither of these presidents have any care about actually fixing the issue, in my opinion.
Right. And to piggyback off of what you just said right there, with me being a minister, and I also have a ministerial brother by the name of William Lowe. I believe he's watching right now. I believe he's still watching. But what we have been noticing, and we've been talking about this prior to the pandemic, was that there is a shift for those kingdom workers who will not grow weary during this new season that we're walking in. Because what is going on is God is actually expanding the territory of those who are still holding on steadfast and standing firm on his word. And when I say that, it's shedding light on what is actually at the foundation. Because one thing that I've realized is that when God had created everything, the heavens and the earth, the simplicity of it, the simplicity within the foundation was a purpose that was deemed good. And it was perfect, and it was supposed to be carried out. Now, human trial and error, now with different philosophies and ideologies like Darwinism, survival of the fittest, which created a platform for elitism and racism to grow upon, that had took root. And when that took root, and when those who don't really know how to articulate what the simplicity of what God was saying, it was played upon those emotions, and their mind and their logic was played upon to be able to hold them captive to whatever agenda that they wanted to get through. And they used the phrase, the Bible says, to offer validity, because nobody wants to go against God. So I was like, my goodness, it's bigger than what is being displayed on mainstream media. And it's funny how, like you said, a lot of people aren't paying attention to mainstream media, but as soon as they turn on the news, it's a sensationalized event that is targeting a specific group of people and is causing an uproar, and it's making the government seem like they are very insensitive to what is actually going on. But it's been a blessing, because there have been some circumstances that have gotten some light shedded on that needed to be addressed and not no longer pushed under the rug like I've been doing for many, many years. So with that being said right there, what is it that you think individuals must do during these times right here, during these times of exposing the truth? What are some words of encouragement for those individuals who are actually walking in the truth and are actually presenting the truth, but they feel like nobody is hearing them?
That's a good question. You know, after seeing, because we're hyper sensitive, and we're literally getting a front row seat with our smartphones of all the bad things happening in the world, and it's hard to be optimistic, and it's hard to think about what can I do to help change the world, right? Mm-hmm. I think that we could, to your point earlier, I think we need to simplify it. And this isn't a completely original idea. This is very much a Jordan Peterson idea. I very much look up to him. He had said that we need to start at the individual and how can I make myself better? How can I improve myself? Because each one of us has potential. We could all, instead of telling everybody you're special, you're perfect the way you are. No, how about I say, you could be so much better than you are today. You could be so much better. Not only improve yourself, but improve the relationships with the people around you, your friends, your coworkers, your family. You're a node. You're an important node in this ridiculously huge network of human beings. And by you lifting yourself up, whether it's making the small steps towards building that business or that passion you have, by investing in yourself and lifting yourself up, you will lift up the people who are wanting to also lift up. You will lift those people around you up as well. And, you know, oh, okay, well, you're not collectively changing the entire country. Okay, well, nobody can really do that. So how about you start with the individuals around you, and you will make a real difference. I know it sounds very small scale and simple, but it's not easy. And if it's much more realistic to tell everyone individually to clean your room, and, you know, these simple ideas of just making those small steps of comparing yourself not to others, but to who you were yesterday, and continue to make those small steps to improve yourself, thus the people around you. It's easier to tell everyone to do that than to say, well, everyone has the collective responsibility to do this. Well, then not everyone's going to do that. So you could just say, oh, well, it's pointless. No, we have to bring back the idea of, it's not about not caring about other groups of people. It's more just being realistic about starting at yourself, because you can fix yourself. And by you fixing yourself, you can fix others around you. And I think that on a large scale, by more people going forth about life like that, it will fundamentally impact the world. I fully believe that.
I love that answer, because your answer pretty much was the main reason why I created this podcast right here. With the change starting with you, embodying the change that you want to see within your community. And then once you embody that change, it shows through your actions. So Amen. Those around you, it will allow their gifts to be cultivated and say, hey, I can contribute to the maintaining of this change here by utilizing my gifts, and we connect, and then it just continues to grow from there, and you start developing these relationships that are real within your community. And once you do that, since that's how change is obtained, to keep it maintained, you ensure that relationship is healthy and strong with those leaders that you elect within your community. So that way it continues to go up the ladder so it can be maintained. And then on top of that, going even back to even simpler terms, starting with yourself, repentance is something that is necessary, because if God knows that if God is the beginning and the end, he knows that the way, and you allow him in your life, you will start to realize that there were things that have been done that have made you get off track. And as a result of, everybody has gone off track. So when you do your part of ensuring that it is understood by itself, obtained amongst the community, maintained with the relationships within community and community leaders, it's sustained when everybody aligns with the ordered steps that God had on their life. That right there is a great general push at the smaller scale. And once you be able to maintain that on a smaller scale, then it should go up the ladder. That's why we should pray without ceasing. And therefore, everybody will continue to grow and prosper in the way that we're supposed to be prospering.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. So with all of that stuff that we just said right there, because that was awesome. I love conversations like this. I love the fact that we're able to agree on that and continue to just bounce ideas and conversation off of each other. I love that idea. I love that right there, that action. Now, with all that we have said and all that is going on in this world, all the things that we have accomplished, we're going to talk about you. In your own words, who is Marco Ortega? Not what everybody else say, but when you look in the mirror, who are you?
That's not a hard question at all. You got me on the spot there, and I even watched a couple episodes, so I should have expected that question, huh?
Yes, because I like when people explain who they are in their own words, because when you starting on the path, whatever path you're going on, that's the fundamental question. That's your reason why. Sure. So I want everybody who in the future may connect with you or watching and saying, I want to get in touch with this guy here. Let's work together and things like that. I want them to hear from your mouth exactly who they'll be dealing with. So the floor is yours. Who is Marco Ortega?
For sure. I'm a alternative hip hop artist who very much wants to bring a sense of truth to the hip hop game, if you will. Mm-hmm. I want to give the genre its due. And it's not to say there's no meaningful rap today. I just think that at least what bubbles up to the top is very nihilistic and postmodern. Very much puts this idea that there is no truth and there's nothing that is correct because there is no objective truth. And that's not just hip hop. That's just the Western civilization today. Right. So I very much want to, bring some truth back and again, bring some dignity to the hip hop game today. And I want to live, truth is one of my highest ideals. I mean, God is the ultimate ideal, but truth is very much paired with that. And I think that's definitely something that I try to live my life by. Every time you lie, the world gets a bit closer to chaos. So I'm very much just wanting to be as honest of a person as I can. Try to live my life as in regards to just trying to continue to better myself. Of course, I'm a ridiculously flawed human being. But I very much just, I want, and this is something very specific to my hip hop, mission, because I feel like, oh, that's a good question. So what is truth? And I could address that question because it's a very hard question, but just to finish my tirade, I feel like a lot of hip hop artists who try to be meaningful can't help but sound hokey. I don't know why. And I think that a lot of the hip hop today that sounds so new and so experimental, while it doesn't have very much meaning to it, their flow is amazing. Like, they have amazing sound and amazing flow. I want to marry those things together. There are very few people that manage to do that. Kendrick Lamar being the ultimate exception today in contemporary hip hop. He has lyricism behind him and he sounds amazing. Like, he doesn't sound hokey at all. So I want to bridge that gap because I think there's a market need. Please address it. It's not a hard question. What is truth? Well, we could try to take a Plato aspect to it. So Plato had addressed this question of like, okay, well, is there really truth? Okay, let's start at the bottom. 2 + 2 = 4. math is truth, right? Like it's a universal thing. So that we start there. Are there is taking advantage of a woman wrong? Well, yeah, because she had no agency in that interaction, and you took something from her that she didn't want to, and now she will be negatively affected for the rest of her life. What's the positive? What's the good in that? And then we could think, okay, well, why? Because this is an actual question I've been asked. Well, why don't I just stay in my bed and live like a vegetable and just watch Netflix and do nothing with my life? Well, I mean, you can, but there are ways to not, end up hating yourself and eventually not want to live anymore. So there, I feel like today there's a lot of postmodernists who say, well, there's no truth. Like everything's objective. Everything is subjective.
Right.
Well, that's ridiculous, because then you take logic and reason out of the question. Like you just throw that out of the water, and then we get to things today. Other controversial thing, people say there's 72 genders. There's no scientific evidence to back that up, and that's just a postmodern idea. So to go back to what is truth, there are ways to go about life that don't end up having people hate you, and there are ways to go about life that don't make you weak, and weak is objectively bad. So there's just things that actually hold water to them. There's a reason. This light bulb isn't powered by water and fish, like there's truth to how things come about. And at the very bottom, there's math and physics. And when you get into philosophy and theology, you get into more advanced concepts. And obviously God has, in the Bible, there's ridiculous truth in the words of God. That's why it's lasted for thousands of years. And that's why it's one of the cornerstones of Western civilization. One of the freest and most wealthy civilizations to ever live. So I think, to answer your question, it's just the things that actually hold weight and add good to society.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So, getting back to the music at hand, because I know that's how you was we was going to that part right there. We definitely going to get back to the truth and things like that.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
Going back to the hip hop, I know you love the sounds of today. I know that the fundamental sounds of yesterday was the foundational piece that, made hip hop prevalent and relevant how it is today in the industry. So, Which would you prefer? Would you prefer old school hip hop? And when I say old school hip hop, I'm not talking about just in that realm of, Run DMC and them things like that. And I'm talking about like old school, like if it's late 90s, early 2000s, or do you like the more recent or what you're hearing now? What is your preference?
Old school, new school?
Yes.
Okay. That's funny because I was asked this question recently. If I had to, is just preference? Okay.
Yes, preference is preference.
Preference. Well, I was also imagining if I had to only listen to this hip hop versus another, what would I choose? It's such a difficult question because it's a trade-off. Today's music, the reason why hip hop is one of the hottest genres today is because it is one of the few genres that continues to innovate, not only in flow and delivery, but also in production. It doesn't even sound like what it sounded like 5 years ago. This is the same reason why rock isn't nearly as popular as it was 15 years ago. It hasn't innovated in at least 15 years, if not 20 years. It's still great music, but it's not new. And you have to be new to be at the top, in my opinion, typically. Whereas the old school had more truth. There was a lot more filtration. There was a lot more barrier to entry in the music industry, not only when it came to if you got picked on a label, and actually had a chance to have people listen to music. There's a lot more barrier to entry in regards to how you're going to get your stuff distributed. So I think there was a lot more curation in the past, and that with time-tested songs, the ones that were really the best, not only in terms of production, but also in terms of its lyricism, came to the top. Now that literally anybody with a computer and a microphone can make hip hop music, there's literally you could make a song today. Doesn't mean it can be good, but you can get it. So going back to your question, I guess if I had to choose, the way I frame it, if I had to choose one breadth of music versus the other, I would choose old school, just because it was the fundamentals, and it literally created something out of nothing. Hip hop became born, which is literally, it's close to impossible to do, to create a new genre. And blacks have created so many new genres in American history. It's astounding. So yeah, I would choose old school, just because I feel like I would be able to survive on that much longer.
Yeah, the substance, the flavor, the originality, the uniqueness, the authenticity, the whole nine. Like that's how I feel about it. And that's actually what helped me, because when you see these artists and they're just breaking into new territory right there, as soon as they open this door right here for their creativity to just, spread to the masses, it's like, man, I haven't heard it delivered this way before. I haven't heard it delivered that way before. So it's like, man, that's amazing. And then you the door opener for other individuals who aspire to, do the same thing that you do in that same way, shape, or fashion. So that's one thing that I truly love about the old school hip hop. It was straight raw and authentic and original, and it gave birth to those who are doing it today. Now, even more specific, who are some hip hop artists that had influenced you to start rapping?
Sure thing. I think the top three that come to mind are Big Crit. I love Big Crit. Schoolboy Q and Travis Scott. I would say those three. Big Crit, probably the biggest slept-on rapper in the 2010s.
Yeah,
he really brought back the Southern sound in a way that has been so negligent. And he was really slept on. Even when he got signed to Def Jam, it's ridiculous how they didn't hype him up. It's actually quite astounding. So I love his flow and his use of 808s. It's something I'm trying to implement into my music. Schoolboy Q, he's an example of an artist that, he talked about drugs and sex and violence, and in a very aggressive way. But he actually presented it to you. He's doing what I'm doing in a different way, but he actually used the trap aggressive sound in a way that actually made sense. He fully illustrated through his music how ugly and how disturbing the things he used to do as a gangster. Like he gave you a front row seat, and in a way that I really love the sound. It's very sinister, and in a way that actually made sense. He wasn't being senselessly sinister, just like, oh, I'm a big shot, look at me. More just like, oh no, I'm actually going to show you how I used to be. And then Travis Scott definitely added a level of psychedelic sound and a lot of innovation in his production that I'm looking to listen to more and implement in my stuff as well. Again, because like hip hop's definitely on the cutting edge. Along with the greats is Kanye. Even though while he's an artist genius, he's also crazy, and genius and crazy are both sides of the same coin.
Right.
But he's definitely broke ground and added a new identity to hip hop, especially with his My Dark Twisted Fantasy. I thought that's, while I wasn't a huge fan of that album, I do think it broke a new mold in regards to the sound of hip hop.
Most definitely, and I understand that, because with Kanye, I was like, every album does not sound the same. That's what I like about him. Every album doesn't sound the same. Like when you listen to College Dropout, then you go straight to Late Registration. It's like, okay, it's shifting. Then you go from Late Registration, then you go to Graduation. Okay, there's a shift in the tone. And then he jumps to a whole nother genre with 808s and heartbreak. And I'm like, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So I believe he is the prime example of the shift that hip hop had took. Do you agree with that? Like the flavor that Kanye had brought to the game. Like he started off with the soul samples of the early 2000s, and then the experimental, I'm going to add dubstep, EDM type music. I'm going to blend the sounds. Would you agree that Kanye West was the innovator that pushed this new wave of, entertainment in hip hop today?
I would say that he very much is most of the time ahead of the culture. I think that's one of the main reasons why he became so Christian and created Jesus as King, which definitely isn't a perfect album in my opinion, but it's pretty awesome in some sense. He's able to see trends, not all the time, but he's able to see trends a bit in the future, and then he's able to execute on that. So I agree, especially when it came to my Dark Twisted Fantasy, he definitely added a new element to it. When it came to Yeezus, I think he was actually trying to play a little catch up. I mean, Death Grips made a lot of the same sounds that he did in that album before he did. So he was just trying to do his own sound on it, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But then, I think it's broader. He brings forth this new sound to hip hop as being one of the top people in the game right now and in the past. And then even culturally, largely, I think there is in the West a kind of Christian revitalization going on. And I think that he saw that and he wanted to, not necessarily as an opportunist, there may be some level of that too, but I think that he felt that as it came about and he wanted to implement some of that into his music.
I understand that right there. And all in all, I know for a fact that I knew what he was trying to do with this music, but some of it I was just like,
yeah.
Nah.
The AAA line's like ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? Like that ruined the song.
Yeah.
There were a couple of tracks that I liked, and I can't think of the names right now.
Yeah.
But again, he's a genius and he's also crazy. So he definitely misses the mark sometimes, like hard.
Yeah. He'll go this way, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, all right, where would you go on with this one? But that's the beauty. That's the beauty in music, though. It's what you're trying to articulate at that moment right there. And the genius behind it is when you sit there and you just conversate about their thought process when they were creating it. Now, indeed, the reception of music is based off of perception. I love this sound right here, and it might cater to another audience. And, for the most part, some individuals that followed you from the beginning, they might drop off because they're figuring, hey, you forgot about us over here. So therefore, if you're paying attention to them over there, why should we continue to follow you? Because now you have lost your roots. How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel that when you start off and you want to venture off and do other things musically and sonically that disagrees with your core fans, what is it that will keep you moving forward to that direction and make you say, hey, I'm moving in the right direction, whereas not being pigeonholed and stuck where your core fans want you to be?
Yeah. I thought about that before, because as being a music artist, you have to keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. I think it's about expectation. So if you make even just like 2 albums, definitely 3, if you make 2 or 3 albums of like the same general genre, it's going to be pretty hard to like change your audience's expectations and have them be tolerant of you venturing out quite suddenly. So I think there are 2 ways to approach it. One, you could slowly change your sound and move in the direction that you'd like. I think Tyler, the Creator, did that pretty well.
Yes.
It's crazy because if you listen to Flower Boy, because I'm sure a lot of people like listen to Flower Boy and that was their first introduction to Tyler, the Creator. they had no idea the stuff he was making initially, like Goblin, like some of the really disturbing and gritty stuff that he made that scared me when I was a younger kid. Sometimes I listen to it now. It's a little interesting. You either slowly make those changes so that the audience is like, okay, I'm out here for the ride, and they like it or they don't, or dang, I can't remember his name right now. But there's artists also take the idea of, no, I'm not going to be constant. I'm actually going to be quite jumping off the wall all the time, and that's just the kind of artist I am. So I think if you make that expectation from the get-go that I'm going to be different every time you hear me, then they're like, okay, that's who you are, and that's what I'll expect. And I think like you mentioned earlier, like Kanye had a different sound basically every album.
Yeah.
So he was able to get away with making stuff like Jesus and other stuff like that.
Most definitely. And I agree with you on that. If you initially come into the game knowing that, hey, I'm going to always be different, I'm going to do me regardless, I think your core fans would be more, appreciative and will accept the fact that, hey, I know this album's not going to sound like that album because you came in with that thought process, and that's what they gravitated to, the fact that you are able and willing to push the envelope. And going to Tyler, the Creator, one thing that I like about him is that when he went from his earlier works and then he broke into his solo with Bastard and Goblin, Wolf, Flower Boy, he was taking you on a journey. So it was like it was a story within the musicianship that he was displaying. Like the specific chords, like indeed he uses the same sounds, but how he used them, it was like, hey man, I'm telling you a dark, twisted story, but now I'm going to also shift and show you the growth and create the music that I wanted to create. Whereas the music that you expect for me to create, I'm past that. I outgrew that. A lot of people tried to pigeonhole Tyler into saying, hey, you're the gritty rapper that raps dark, talks about raping women, this, that, and the third. But in actuality, he was a rapper that was saying, hey, I love Roy Ayers. I love Charlie Wilson. I want to infuse that with my music. I want to introduce younger people and also to those individuals who are saying, hey, I love rap, but I also love jazz. I also love R&B and neo soul. I want to fuse and make a whole new genre where I stand by myself. So you can't say I'm not a legend because I did it my way in totality. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of vibe that I get from you. Like when I heard Virtual Tragedy, because today is the day, people, for those who are joining in, today is the day that Virtual Tragedy dropped everywhere. When I first heard Virtual Tragedy, I was like, man, nobody's saying this in their lyrics, first and foremost, because the fact that you was raising awareness that God is there, and then you made it in a way of people saying God, you're saying God is there, but people are trapped in this cocoon. You know what I'm saying? You're trapped in this cocoon that society had built as a result of removing them from that to the point where you got yourself lost. Am I right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of that. Yeah, we're in this virtual cocoon somewhat against our will. And we're seeing this stuff play out, and it's hard for us to, because the only way we're gonna to fix the problems that we have in our country is through real conversation. But we're having all these conversations that need to be had over Facebook and Twitter, so like that's not going to fix anything. So yeah, we have to watch this virtual. Like I'm looking in a Zoom. It's like we're all watching a collective Zoom call of everything burn. So it's right. Just like yeah. So but God is there. Yeah. So yeah, it's a reminder. That's why I sort of have the organ sound, because I wanted there to be like we're in a cathedral and like we're at the final hour and we need to like hear this. It's also part of the vibe that I wanted to create as well.
Most definitely. I got a question here. It said, what type of audience are you talking to in your music, and what message are you getting to them?
It's a good question. Thanks, Will. I'm looking, the kind of audiences, those who are pursuing truth and God, and that's not saying everyone in my audience needs to be Christian, but those who actually find that there needs to be an ideal that we need to chase and pursue in all the things we want to create in this world, and that includes hip hop, because that is a fundamental cornerstone in today's music industry, and it's something that needs to be a message that needs to be put there. And that sort of aligns with the question of what message I'm trying to put to them as well. Is I want to talk about topics that aren't given enough light in a musical fashion and in a way that you can vibe to, so to speak. But for those who actually want to, it's somewhat optional, right? Like if you just want to listen to music and like the sound, more power to you. But if you want to hear something meaningful as well, for those who have the time and want to actually dig deeper into that, that's for them as well.
That's what's up right there. Now, I know today is the day that you released the single Virtual Tragedy. Is there a project behind this, or is there another single in the works? Talk to us and let us know what we should be expecting.
For sure. So for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be releasing on a single-by-single basis, especially if one is an emerging artist. In today's world of everyone's creating content and streaming platforms are as they are, it's just a bit smarter for emerging artists to just go ahead and do it single by single. So it'll probably be a little while before I release a full-on album project. But I do have at least one single already almost done. I just have to fix up some stuff. So that should be released ideally within the next couple months, if not 3 months. So I want to have a regular schedule of music coming out, right? And then I'm planning on getting some additional tools that will allow me to create some very unique sounds as well. So trust me, the amount of music will continue to come rolling out.
Oh man, that's what I'm talking about right there. And I like how you saying that you have to get some more tools that could craft your sound. So it's like basically you're making your own sound.
Yeah, I fully produced all the couple songs that I'm about to release. So far, I'm a self-produced guy. I produce it, mix it, and master it. I definitely am in the infancy of of 1,000 different learning curves. So it's definitely like any artist or any endeavor you begin, you're going to suck at the beginning. And that's just the name of the game, right? Like you're going to have your worst work at first, but as you continue to grow, it will continue. Like with any great artist, they grow over time. Obviously this single was definitely good enough that I was like, okay, I actually want to release this because I think this is timely and it needs to be said. But yeah, I'm right now I'm a self-produced artist, and I plan on continuing to make efforts towards that. I'll probably bring in some professional mixers and masters, sound engineers for the next couple singles, maybe. But when it comes to production, I definitely want to have a strong hand in the game.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like on the Eminem tip where like when we hear the beat, we know it's produced by you and we know how you're going to do your beat. Am I right?
Yeah, somewhat. I'm definitely a fan of the trap sound for sure. So there probably will be a lot of trap coming out. But I think I also want to, like we had spoken about earlier, I want to set some level of expectation that like I'm going to try to venture out with the sound as well. This single definitely has the primary instrument in this single is an organ, like in the middle of a cathedral, which is what the sound sounds like.
Right, it does.
Something that's typically not in any rap song, so I wanted that to be different. To be honest, I listen to hip hop, but I also listen to a lot of indie alternative music as well, and I really am interested in bringing in some level of synths into the mix as well. Whether it's just an alternative kind of sound or very airy and ethereal, evanescence kind of sounds as well.
I understand that because those synths, those pads, I use that in my earlier productions.
For sure, they sound so cool. It sounds so cool. I mean, I want to learn more instruments over time, but I mean, I obviously chose the keyboard first because A, I'm learning piano, and B, I can basically be any instrument. Like you can choose any sound you like, and it's beautiful. Yeah. We live in a beautiful time. there's plenty to, you know, we've talked about a lot of dark topics, and there's definitely a lot of dark things to talk about today, but we live in an absolutely beautiful time, to be honest. We're at an all-time low when it comes to, well, probably pre-COVID was a bit better, but we live at an all-time low when it comes to violence and infant mortality. And with today's social media and YouTube and Instagram, as you're doing as well, like we're both building our own empires, our own brands, our own companies, doing things we love to do, and we have never been able to. There's the bar has never been lowered anymore in terms of barrier to entry. So we live in a beautiful time. You're able to go and create your own thing if you want. There's no excuses anymore. Everyone has a smartphone. You can go ahead and just start. If you have a smartphone and a camera on it, you can go ahead and create your own thing. It's a beautiful time.
So with that said right there, where do you see your platform going, let's say within the next year, next 3 years, so on and so forth? Like, where do you see yourself in this industry?
Could you expand a bit on that? What do you mean by my platform?
I would say basically like with everything that you had explained, like what you want to do. As far as like the actions and the plans that you have to ensure that that comes into fruition, where do you see, like thinking result wise, where do you see yourself within the next year or so down the line?
For sure. I will definitely be, you know, it's a very odd time to be choosing to be a musician because you can't go perform anywhere. So you'd be lucky if you could watch a performance, let alone be in one. Right. I'm putting a lot more invested in terms of digital. So you'll be seeing me, you know, continue to. Instagram is where my primary platform I've been putting a lot of investment in. So go ahead and give me a follow for y'all who want to see when my next single will be coming out and such. But I'll also, you know, I'm thinking about other ways to create a following and, you know, actually build a business. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to be able to make a living off this, right? So I could have this be my full-time thing and be able to have my passion into my life's work. So I've been thinking about starting a podcast myself. So, you know, don't be surprised if I start a podcast, and I'd like to be one of my first guests.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate that. Look, it's a done deal. Just let me know the date up there.
For sure. So yeah, I'm putting a lot of investments in digital. Like I said, I'm very much in my infancy in regards to creating my own unique sound and learning all the things necessary to create sincerely beautiful music. So a lot of learning, a lot of investment in digital, and then creating the proper real life connections and putting in, investments in my performance, because that's a huge reason why I want to be an artist too. Putting investments in my performance. I'm based in Austin, by the way, for y'all interested. So I'll be definitely performing in the Austin area as soon as I'm able to.
Most definitely. And I'm praying for you too. And I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm rooting for you, man. I'm rooting for the success of this single. And I pray that when y'all hear Virtual Tragedy, that what he was trying to express when he was creating it, you understand it, it takes root, and then you share that song with each and everybody that you know. The reason why is because it has to be told. It has to be talked about. I'm talking about the reality. It has to be talked about within society today. You got to embody the change. You have to be the change, and change has to be understood and properly articulated and have a solid foundation. And we all know where that solid foundation starts with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So, my brother, are there any words of encouragement for those individuals who are walking that same path as you as an independent artist that wants to create something, but they're kind of discouraged because, like you said in the beginning, your sound is kind of raw. You don't really have no directions. You're trying to figure it out. What are some words of encouragement that you would like to leave for those artists that are tuned in today?
Sure thing. I think an emerging artist, whether you're a musician, a comedian, any kind of creative endeavor, or even even a podcaster as well, you have to acknowledge the fact that this journey, for you to get where you want to be, it is probably going to take a decade. like in all seriousness, it's probably going to take 10 years of your life to really get where you want to be. Now, I'm not saying nothing's going to happen in 10 years, but I'm saying that you're going to have to commit to this kind of endeavor and this kind of commitment. That being said, everyone had to start where you're at, and everyone who's realistic with themselves. I mean, sometimes it's hard for me to get to the keyboard sometimes and actually like learn the fundamentals of chords and scales and stuff, what I need to learn to create what I want to create. But it's you either choose to put forth the effort and the work, which may not be fun, towards this passion that you have, or you could choose the less risky route of continuing to do your day job that you probably aren't really enamored with for the rest of your life. I think you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. They both aren't easy. But I think rather than thinking that happiness is a destination, I think humans have much more fulfillment bearing this burden, carrying this cross of working towards something that is so difficult, but it's something that you actually find meaning and fulfillment in. Well, no matter what niche of a thing, of a passion you have, there is an audience for it, especially on the internet today. So I think that people need to, especially in this time of lockdown, of social distancing, take this time that you have and little by little, baby step by baby step, put time and effort towards the things you actually will find and just make it a habit. It's not easy, and I'm not going to try to say it is because it isn't. But think about the options you have. Think about why you want to do this and what alternative you may have. So I think reframing it like that helps.
It really does. And I thank you for pointing out the fact that this is not easy, because some people think starting stuff from the ground, building things from the ground up, it's just supposed to, boom, be a finished, you know what I'm saying? The finished product is supposed to be as soon as you put the seed in the ground, not knowing that there is a process. So since the conversation to shift gears to that right there, what are some intangibles that those who are embarking on this entrepreneurial path, what are some intangibles that you feel that they should have to endure the tough times when they're building?
Well, it's implied. Perseverance is definitely one of the biggest things. And I think perseverance is probably, even if you just, I don't know how much truth there is to this. I think perseverance could really, no matter really about how good you are, you can be successful if you just keep doing it. I don't mean to be mean, and I'm not going to name any names, but there are plenty of artists or celebrities that I don't understand why they're successful, but they are. And it's because they kept doing it. They just kept doing it. And they actually had the audacity to do what they did. And they're completely successful. So perseverance, you need to have some sense of consistency, some sense, and definitely if you're an artist, you need to have, and I hate this term because it's sort of like producty, but you need to have some sense of a brand. Doesn't mean you need to be fake. Your brand definitely needs to be very closely aligned to who you really are. Perhaps like a really idealized form of who you want to be. Not perfect, but ideal. But I think it's a combination of having a real plan, having consistency and perseverance. And I think that if you go forth with those things, the perseverance and the true sense of passion you have towards this endeavor will take you the way.
Definitely agree 100%. Perseverance, consistency, a brand. One thing too, I want people to understand is accountability, because it starts and ends with you. That's a part of being a creative. When you take these, this thing here and this thing here, and you're putting it together, then what you embody when you look in the mirror, it has to be articulated through what you just created. That's the whole purpose of building your own brand and being the CEO and the boss and the visionary for that plan right there, because accountability is definitely key. Now, if you can't be accountable, you can't hold yourself responsible. If you don't have the drive to be dedicated, then being the visionary, it's going to definitely be hard because, I mean, that is a lot to hold on your shoulders. And I know some of us make it look easy. And, you know, you see us here, you see us there. We're creating this, we're marketing this, and we just make it look so easy when they see us on the camera. But when the camera is off, that's when the game actually begins. Because I want to be transparent for a moment. When they see these interviews and things like that, how I'm able to articulate the words, how am I able to keep the conversations flowing and things of that nature. A lot of people say, oh man, you're a natural at it. And you know what I'm saying? They give all of these kudos, and honestly, I don't know how to take it because I'm so focused on getting better and better each time. It's like, man, I appreciate it, but you know how you set the expectations and the standards and the goals. It's like, okay, you're saying this, but I know I'm not there yet. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I do a bit. Yeah,
so
I mean, yeah, it takes time. And again, like social media is like, for the most part, all the things that we actually chose to share. So you're only going to see like the best. But we don't get a front row seat as to, unless they choose to share it, all the hard things and all the back end work that it really took, all the research, all the hours of time that somebody took to produce something, or how many times I had to hit that to spit that bar. Like it's I had to retake that, like, 15 different times, whatever, and that's just, that's just how it takes. But, and I think it's hard because, especially if you're like a lone creative, like you feel alone, and especially in this time of pandemic, you feel alone, but you're never alone.
Right.
God's always there with you.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. And that's all we can lean on at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? The power and knowledge of God and what he has over our life. That's why it's imperative. And I always say it, that word is something that must be implemented, understood. And if you don't understand it, asking you shall receive, because he will definitely give you direction over the vision that he entrusted you to carry out. The purpose that he put on your life, he will definitely give you the guidelines. He will definitely give you the answers. And as long as you abide by that word, I promise you will definitely get there. I appreciate you for letting me get transparent, because that, I'm telling you all, the finished product is the result of the hard work that we all put in. And when you hear Virtual Tragedy, you will definitely hear that hard work that he put in. Because honestly, when you are an artist that is articulating truth, it's kind of hard to, because truth, it's so much that you want to say. How are you able to construct Virtual Tragedy? Because I know there's a lot more that you could have said on that track, but it was like, how were you able to pinpoint those bullet points that you wanted to say in that song? Or how did you choose what you wanted to say in that song? Because you dropped a lot of gems in there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So, well, first you have to, for each song, you have to have some kind of core theme. Can't just be about everything, or really about nothing. I'll just give people a back row seat and a sneak peek into actually how I go about it. Thank goodness for technology. So I really use a combination of a dictionary, a thesaurus, and this website called Rhyme Zone. So I'm able to, if I have a line that I think of and ends with this, and it has this amount of syllables, and it has this ending sound, I'm able to either find another word that rhymes with that or loosely rhymes with that, or I can go to a thesaurus and find a word that means the same thing. So I have different sounds to choose from. So I actually have a very systematic way of being able to see which words are available to me. So I have this message I want to say, but then I could use these tools to be like, what other words also mean that, and what words rhyme with that? And then I also have like an implicit sense of how many syllables I can realistically fit into a certain bar, given the beat. So I think there's definitely a combination of knowing what you want to say, having a good sense of what you can say fit in a bar, and then utilizing tools. I mean, some people may think, oh, that's cheating. It's like, not really. It's just a tool to my disposal. I mean, if you don't think I can do that, you can't use auto-tune. How about that? To make yourself sound awesome.
Right. That's cheating right there, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Y'all, it has definitely been a pleasure. This is the very first episode. We done made history, right? This is the very first Be the Change podcast episode to air on Instagram Live. So you was my first guest on Instagram. And for everybody who have tuned in, I am completely thankful. And I want you all to get Virtual Tragedy. Now, the last question that I'm gonna ask, and then this can lead into your final words because we have reached the conclusion. Where can people find you on social media? How can they get the track? I know we said that in the beginning, but just to reiterate it for those who joined in the last final moments, where can they get the song? How can they follow you? And any final words that you would like to say to the viewers?
For sure. So Virtual Tragedy is now available on all major streaming platforms. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, SoundCloud, Pandora. You could even attach it to your TikTok or Instagram if you'd like as well. It's all on there. So you're really able to hear it anywhere you'd like. You could follow me on Instagram, marco.f.ortega. That's where I'm primarily putting my digital. Like I had said earlier, I may be venturing more into podcasting, so YouTube may be another place to put that as well. But yes, so for those who just tuned in and would like to understand a bit who I am, I'm an emerging alternative hip-hop artist based in Austin, Texas, and I'd really like to implement the aggressive trap sound, but just the amazing production that hip-hop has to offer today with cutting-edge lyricism, speaking about topics that don't have enough attention to them. And for those who have any sense of loving hip-hop and also wanting to chase this ideal of truth and godliness, I highly encourage you to follow me because that's exactly the journey I'd like to take.
That's awesome right there. And I must commend you and thank you for doing that through your artistry, sir. Couple of shout outs that I want to give out for those who are listening. Kareem Bennett. He just said have him send his music to me on our podcast. He has a big platform too. So I would definitely love for you all to connect. My brother Willow. Hey, that's my brother. When I talk about bars as well, y'all connect. Everybody. Yeah. Sarah, thank you for listening. Minister Callahan wanted us to get into some topics that I had already taught on and things like that. I'm like, hey, this is about my brother. So it doesn't matter, man. I'm so thankful for you just agreeing to be a guest on this podcast. We definitely have more work to do outside of this because This was nothing but basically an introduction into a great, prospering, working relationship. All glory to God. So glory to God. If you're down with that, man, we got more work to do. And for those who want to check out that track, Virtual Tragedy, it's out on all platforms. Connect with my brother. That's why I do this. Be the Change podcast. He utilizing his gifts to contribute to the creation of a better tomorrow today. You all do the same. We all in this together. It doesn't matter your skin color. You are my sister and my brother for sure. Because we are all nations for sure. All nations. Doesn't matter your walk of life. It doesn't matter your skin color. It's the problem. The principalities, the power of the air is bigger than what you see. So with that said, this is the home of the one and only Ashton Reynolds. This concludes the episode of Be the Change podcast. Marco, thank you so much. And to everybody, connect with my brother. We out of here.
See you, Ashton. Thank you.
No problem.
what you wanna know about. Pick your poison cause you know it's narcotic. Big problems like it's coming out the closet. This news ain't